Hey guys, today I want to talk about one of the most important virtues in the digital age. It is the virtue of embodiment. We're going to look at what is embodiment, what is disembodiment, why embodiment is so important, and how we can become more embodied. And so I want to first look at some psychological kind of profiles that have been done, over the years. This is the big five. This is the one that's considered the most scientifically backed. It's the most, has the most successful kind of studies where we can see actual measurable outcomes. And so this measures a person based on 5 personality traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So openness is like, how creative are you? How intelligent, or how willing are you to discuss or consider abstract ideas, beauty, that kind of thing. Conscientiousness is looking at like, how diligent are you? How hard do you work? How do you meet deadlines? Do you pay attention to details? Extroversion is like, how are you energized, and how much enthusiasm do you have? And then what are you like socially? Are you, very enthusiastic, energetic, or are you quieter? Do you prefer big groups and, a lot of motion and noise, or do you prefer kind of more smaller groups, or like solitude, quiet, that kind of thing? Which one energizes you more? When you're around a big group, do you need to recharge afterward by being alone, or does being in the big group itself recharge you? Agreeableness, that's, how cooperative and kind you are. And then neuroticism is like how susceptible you are to like strong emotions and swings of moodiness, irritability, depression, particularly negative emotions. But I think generally somebody who is susceptible to very positive emotions is going to be susceptible to very negative emotions, and it's kind of like that, as opposed to, somebody's probably less likely to be very susceptible to positive emotions, but then very not susceptible to negative emotions, or strong feelings of negative emotions. But anyway, that's the big 5. And then we have Myers-Briggs, which is very not scientific. It's based on Jungian theory, but then some other stuff has been added through the years. Even just starting with extroversion, introversion, you can tell that there's maybe something off, because introversion, extroversion, you see it's like, could be described as talkative, outgoing, like to be in fast-paced environment, that kind of thing. Could be described as reserved or private if you're introverted, would rather observe than be the center of attention, that kind of thing. But then when you look at the actual cognitive functions, introversion and extroversion are actually different things. It's like your orientation to the outer world or to the inner world, and those are just very different things. So the MBTI is kind of wonky, but there are some interesting discoveries, and it can act as like a mirror. Nobody's really a personality type. Humans are so much more complicated and unique than that. But it's kind of there's some interesting things you can learn about yourself just by learning about these different types. But neither of those typing systems, the big 5 or the Myers-Briggs, which are like the 2 biggest ones really, neither of them really consider how physical a person is. Now they look at introversion versus extroversion. So being more physical could be, being more in tune with the outside, or oriented toward the outside world. But I'm talking like, none of them measure like, our feelings can be very physical. You can have a gut reaction to something, or it can be very mental. It could just be all up in your head and you're not feeling really much in your body. And neither of the personality types measure that or even take that into account. But I think that's a big part of who we are. And I think we're realizing that now. I think maybe these personality indexes just didn't, or indices didn't take that into account, because we were so embodied before the digital age that disembodiment was just almost not even a thing. I mean, it was just very easy to separate things out. But I think embodiment and physicality is a huge part of personality. I've noticed that in myself. So yeah, physicality, like how much a person feels things physically, mentally. So like you look at children, in a child, a lot of times anxiety will not manifest as like some mental thing. It's very much just a stomach ache, or anger manifests as like stomping your feet, as opposed to just like this mental kind of feeling in your head. And it's possible maybe adults are the exact same way, but we've just been conditioned to ignore the signs of our bodies. Or maybe some people are less physical and more physical, but either way, losing all touch with your physicality is disembodiment. You become disconnected from the world, because you've been disconnected from your body. So you have like the world, then you have your senses, which come through your body, and then you have your mind. And if this connection breaks here, then you're disconnected from a lot of stuff. Now what's happening now is we have this digital world, which it does have senses. I'm using my fingers, but it's very different than using your whole body. And so it's very visual, like very limited in the senses. So maybe just limited senses / body interaction, and then mind. And then when we're in the real world, reality, we're disconnected from our bodies, and we have this sense that we forget that the world affects us deeply and we affect the world deeply. We also tend to think that in the digital world everything is manipulatable. So we'll get into that in a minute. But here's some kind of there's plenty of evidence that physical and mental are very connected. We see, in addition to the apparent physical health benefits, physical activity also affects mental health positively. This is from the National Library of Medicine, PubMed Central. It's research from 2023. It's current, and it's I think this is a review, so it's looking at many studies. And then we have Harvard Health talking about nutritional psychiatry and how food affects your brain. So something that you're putting into your body is affecting your mental health. So here they say, put simply, what you eat directly affects the structure and function of your brain and ultimately your mood. And then we have this thing that people are starting to discover, scientists are starting to discover, called the gut-brain axis, which is like this interaction between the microbiome, which is like the bacteria and living kind of beings in your gut, and how they affect your nervous system. They go through the vagus nerve, and there's connections, and what you eat and what the state of your microbiome is deeply related to and associated with your mood. Depressive disorders can be almost entirely just gut bacteria imbalance, things like that. And so, that's kind of an emerging field. 2015, this is probably one of the earlier studies on the gut-brain axis in 2015. It's pretty new discovery. Even the microbiome has only been discovered maybe 25 or so years ago. So, but the thing is that when we spend most of our time, as most of us do, in the digital world, we lose touch with the reality of our physical world, like that things are immovable sometimes, or that not everything can be manipulated, or that I was born with certain body parts that dictate something about myself or certain attributes. You know, I have green eyes and that actually means something about me. Whereas when you're in the digital world, the color of your eyes means nothing, except maybe to a camera that's scanning your iris for a facial recognition or something, you know. So, so we become disembodied, and we lose touch with a really core part of ourselves. You know, we're not just consciousnesses, we're not just meat puppets, we're mind and body and soul all deeply intertwined, deeply one, like one thing, very much all together connected. And so it's really important that we stay connected with our bodies. I've noticed in myself just tremendous benefits from just taking an hour or two a day to just be analog, to be embodied, to be in the physical world without, you know, digital, without screens, that kind of thing. And so this is just an essay that I wrote. You can find it here at my website. The essay it's called Disembodiment, the Quiet Epidemic of Modern Life. And toward the bottom, I do have some simple practices to reconnect with your body. And I put, you know, the good news is it doesn't take much to come back. But go barefoot, you know, just, it just reminds you, you feel the ground with your feet, and then that changes something in your mind. You know, walking through a forest, it really, really changes something in your mind, especially if you do it on a regular basis and you become attuned to the world around you. Just touching cool water, splashing it on your feet, it can really like kind of bring you back to earth. Or writing by hand, I feel like when I'm writing with pen and paper, I really get this sense that, I actually just wrote this down recently. Journaling with pen and paper feels like it grounds me to reality. And as long as the pen is touching the paper, I feel like I'm good. Like I'm like grounded, almost just like when you plug something in, there's that grounding wire that brings the electricity into the ground. I just feel very grounded and connected. So it's like a interesting thing, but it's a very physical embodiment type thing, so it makes sense. Moving a little bit, you know, just like moving your shoulders and feeling what that feels like, and like listening to your body, like, is there anything aching? Do I need to like kind of stretch something or move something a little bit? Using your hands, baking, cooking, drawing, you know, anything that uses your hands in the real world can be very beneficial and help you become very embodied. And then breathing and rest, just sitting in stillness and quiet without a screen, without sound, without noise, you know, or just whatever sound is in the world, without, you know, without artificial sound, and just breathing and feeling your breath and noticing how breath goes in and out of your body, what that feels like, you know, and that can really bring you back into your body. So those are some tips. I hope it helps, maybe gives you a moment of peace or reprieve, maybe helps you heal in some way, helps you become more embodied. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this, and give it a thumbs up if you like this kind of thing. Thanks. Peace.